So, before we get too deep into this, yes, I know it's 2025 and it's nowhere near October right now. So, why, you may ask, am I uploading this video now with half finished assets and missing backgrounds? Why don't I just push it back another year just so I can post something more polished and actually on time? I literally agonized over working on this video for a collective 2 years. Okay, more like a year and a half, but you get the point. Because it wasn't the right time to post it, and that it was going to be late because OC-tober is only meant for October. I mean, it's right there in the name. I can't exactly argue that. When I told my partner about this roadblock I had, they grabbed my shoulders, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Art challenges can be done at any time." I couldn't believe that it never occurred to me before. Art challenges are already super difficult. I don't even consider them challenges, personally. They're more like divine trials set forth by gods who could do this shit in their sleep, knowing the common man would fail every single time. Don't get me wrong, I love art challenges and how they push people to be more creative and try new things. But to bring back the metaphor about divine trials for a second, no one said they had to be done in 30 straight days. It's a 30-day art challenge. Who's to say you can't do 15 now and 15 in a year from now? Who said it had to be in October anyway? Oh, what? Because the creator of the challenge added Tober to the end and posted the prompt list on the first day of October? It means it's only in October? Last I checked, that list is still posted and it's not October, so I can do it whenever I want. The point is, we're putting a lot of unspoken rules onto art challenges that aren't really a part of the challenge. Sure, you can do it in all 30 days, but have fun being burnt out by the end of it. Not to mention when life gets in the way. Good luck feeling motivated to draw when you got dishes to do. And there's 11 other months in the year. One of them, that I know of, gets a challenge month, and that's only because it's after October. When I was recording this, I completely forgot about Art Fight, but the point still stands. There are so many months and so many weeks without challenges, and you can do them whenever you want. Dates are imaginary anyway. The only way I acknowledge a day passing is when I go to bed. Don't ask me what day of the week it is because I won't know. So despite my perfectionist tendencies, I'm posting the OC-tober video that I started in 2023 and finished in 2024 now in 2025. With unfinished sprites and unfinished backgrounds, just so I can be fucking done with it and move on to other video ideas. And yes, I have been paralyzed from making video content because of this video. That's been waiting on me to finish it for over a year. But before we jump into the art, I should probably confess that I redrew some of the pieces from 2023 because they were just so bad to me. I had this idea for a bit with my past and future self yapping about the differences and stuff and thought it would be really cute. And even though I made all the artwork for that bit, I'm gonna scrap it. It just didn't fit well in the script anymore, and it would be better for me to explain it myself. So for those redraw sections, I'll show the old art from 2023 as I show the speed paint for 2024. And I'll add a little number at the top of the speed paint so you know when this drawing was made. This challenge was originally intended to be a showcase of my many OCs, so I'm gonna stay true to form and do that. Oh, and one final thing. The OC-tober prompt list I used was created by Ask Anne's Lost Fin on TikTok. And because TikTok is very wish-washy in the US, even after its return, it'll probably be taken away again, they can also be found here. So be sure to check them out, and thank you for the awesome list. Let's get started with day one. Favorite OC. Now, even though this was drawn in 2023, Wells is still my favorite OC, even though he is a fan OC for Genshin Impact, which is a game I don't really play much anymore. He's probably the most fleshed out of my fanon OCs, though his canon has changed as the game developed over time and new areas got designs and lore that I could weave into his. Wells was originally a character from Mondstadt with an anima vision who I romanced with Venti, and he wasn't much of a character really other than being a wandering bard. However, Wells became fully fleshed out after Inazuma was fully released in 2021. 2021? No way, it was released a year ago. Yeah, it has to be. Oh my god. Okay. Anyway, the whole trapped on an island against your will storyline really itched my brain and made me wonder what if Wells got stuck there. And then he was. I gave him the storyline of washed up on the shores of Inazuma before doing Toma's story quest, but you know what? Yeah, 2 Mondstadters can be washed up on Inazuma. It's an inside joke now, and everyone makes fun of monsters for it. Wells's backstory continued to develop from here, but for now, I'll leave you with poor, downtrodden Wells wishing to return home. Day 2, first OC. Ever since I was a kid, I really enjoyed creating characters and have little plots for them. Writing stuff just off the cuff with no plans or ending in sight, and just throwing ideas to the wall because they were fun to me. Most of these stories ended up unfinished, excluding one, a story that I wrote in the 8th grade. I can't remember what it was called, but the plot was very simple, very cliche. It was like normal kids enter a fairyland and they save it. The protagonist of that story is who I'm going to draw right now. Her name is Zia, named after the character from The Kane Chronicles by Rick Riordan. It was my favorite series at the time. It was like all I could think about. I was very much into mythology, as any neurodivergent kid was in middle school. Her description was very simple, black hair and blue eyes, and I never really gave her a design because I didn't draw that much in middle school, which is shocking. I know, I was one of those artists that didn't really start until high school. But anyway, I gave her her first design in 2020 when I tried OC-tober for the first time, before getting to day 2 and giving up. I decided to redesign her again, this time leaning more into her inspiration and attempting to make her look more Middle Eastern in appearance. I kept the eyebrows and red bandana from the 2020 design, and I added a red jewel around her neck as a little nod to the front cover design of the book, which I made for my first digital artwork. I had a lot of fun designing her, and if I ever find that old story, which I'm sure it's somewhere in my apartment, maybe I'll finally give designs to these characters after so long. Day 3, newest OC. Now, obviously, this OC was drawn in 2023, and as a frantic enjoyer of media, he's not my newest OC anymore, but he was at the time of making this video, and I don't feel like redrawing this. But anyway, this is Kohaku Hayashi. He is a fan in OC for Jujutsu Kaisen, and he's the same age as Gojo, Gito, and Shoko. His story at the time, it was very loose and kind of was just meant to be a catalyst for writing silly little reader fanfics, because that's what I do, because I'm cringe. But he is a sorcerer, or rather a curse user, who's used on loan by the Sorcerer's Society as a way to settle his family debt. I would say his rank is around Special Grade 1 just because of his surprisingly high grasp of reverse curse technique that somehow keeps him alive. He uses the tattoos on his body as shikigami, each one representing a person who he has worked for at one point, kind of like a brand. Because of his upbringing, he's very closed off and cold. An intentional asshole, if you will. He has a lot of issues. But he comes under Yaga's care after being sent to Tokyo for reasons. I don't know. But he ends up going to school with Gojo and the others, and I don't know if he survives to adulthood or not. I like to play around with my fanon OCs in the canon of JJK, so nothing is really that final when it comes to him, or any OCs like him. That's just kind of like a blank slate. But let's just say he lives a very nice quiet life in the Japanese countryside where he has no issues and everyone's alive, and they all get tea together every like month or so. I don't know. Day 4, strongest OC. Okay, listen, I know this probably meant like physically, but I kind of want to gush about Sherwin and how he worked through grief and self-help to become a good person despite all the bad things that he's done. And I think that takes like true strength. And also, I have too many OCs that are beefcakes, so I can't exactly pick who's the strongest. But anyway, Sherwin. God, where do I even start with that guy? Sherwin wasn't always the person that he is in the canon of the story that he's a part of. In the part of the timeline that the story takes place in, Sherwin is 3 years sober and he's medicated for his major depressive disorder. You wouldn't know it from looking at him because he's always like smiling and he's often the most empathetic of the cast, but there was a time that he struggled with who he was. When he was 19, he decided to run away from home because he wanted to see the rest of the islands outside outside of his own before being forced to serve his nation against his will. As a naive young adult, he became influenced by those around him who were not the best kind of people, and he became kind of hateful and cruel, using substances, getting like high and stuff, losing himself, even though at the end of it, it made him want to not exist anymore. Despite his cruel persona, he was still like the soft little nomadic boy deep underneath, and when his heart was stolen by the girl who threw him into the pool for messing with her friend, it was like he was born again. Lainey was good for him. She reminded him of the boy he was before the city took hold, and didn't hold back from tearing into him for the shit he's done. But even she wasn't safe from him and his actions. She left Sherwin in the middle of the night without a word after confessing that she couldn't take watching him hurt himself for his friends. Sherwin spiraled after that, isolating himself from everyone and becoming a depressive recluse for months until an unlikely friend grabbed him by his armpits and forced him to quit being pitiful for himself and to just be better than he was before, even if Lainey or anyone else had every right to never forgive him. It took time, a lot of therapy, and community help, but Sherwin was able to face himself in the mirror again without the sharp pain of shame and guilt rendering him useless. His strength comes from being able to forgive himself for being a terrible person and redeeming himself for himself, not for the sake of being forgiven. Though I will say, if he were to meet Lainey again, he would probably do anything to make it up to her for the shit that he put her through. Day 5, weakest OC. Alright, a little bit of a cop-out to draw a child, but listen, he actually is a child and he doesn't get aged up, so technically he is the weakest of my OCs. But anyway, this is Nolan. He's a child in the world of my webcomic of All the Years to Love. In this world, witches are humans who'd make temporary magic deals with Fae to get powers to aid the Empire, and these powers then get passed down for 3 generations. Usually, the witches' designs are based off of the Fae they get a contract with, but Nolan's color palette is actually inspired by my patron of the arts, Evelyn. She's been my patron for 8 years since she was a whale baby, and look at her. Oh my god, she's such a bitch to everyone but me. Nolan is an unclaimed witch descendant, meaning he doesn't have a lineage of witches and was either abandoned or is an orphan given to the government to care for. He's very meek and quiet with a special interest in fish and aquatic life. He doesn't have a lot going for him character-wise, as he is an epilogue-only character meant to be adopted by the End King couple. So that's it for him. Bye, Nolan. Day 6, favorite ship. Choosing a favorite ship is hard for me out of my OCs because at my heart and soul, I am a multi-shipper and I like to put characters together with a ton of different characters just to feel out their dynamics and tropes that they kind of create. So this was super hard to pin down any one ship as my favorite. Except for these two. Meet Faris and Rowan. They're from the same universe as Sherwin, and they are super in love with each other. It's kind of cringe and disgusting how in love with each other they are. These two are part of a reincarnated lover trope, as both were a pair of knights that fell in love before dying in a war together. They are both aware of their past lives and know it's part of their destiny to fall in love with each other, but they are very anxious about whether or not they will actually love each other again, like their romantic counterparts. They started off rather anxious and nervous around each other, but fell into each other's lives rather effortlessly, like the soulmates they always were. They are introduced as a couple from the beginning of the canon, and their respect and love for each other is very obvious. They would do anything for each other, and they trust each other's judgment. While I have them narratively already a couple, I feel like it's important for people to see a couple that's already established and is canonically destined for one another, go through normal couple hiccups, and recover through it healthily. I love them both very, very much. They're my little OCs that kiss all the time. Day 7, color that represents an OC. So despite talking about Sherwin, Faris, and Rowan first, they aren't the main character of that story. That spot is saved for Sonia Waters, or Sunny to her friends. Sunny has been a character in my brain since 2016. Her first design actually being closer to Wells than where she is now. I guess I just really like that bubblegum pink and blue eye combination. But pink was always going to be her color. I've always associated pink with her because when I think of pink, I think of bubblegum and pop and just goofy fun, which is what Sunny is like. She's rather optimistic and very go with the flow. I also like the idea of taking a character like her and putting her in difficult situations, making her into the character that's like, I didn't sign up for this even though I agreed to do this, with a dash of, no one can know I'm stupid and panicking right now. She's got imposter syndrome like you wouldn't believe, and it doesn't help when everyone tells you how much you suck at your new job. Day 8, OC in traditional clothing. Look, it's our first repeat offender, and it's Wells again. When I said that he was my favorite, it wasn't a lie. I love that fucking twink. When I saw this prompt, I knew I had to put that motherfucker in a kimono. This also gives me the opportunity to continue to gush more about his lore in Genshin Impact. So during Wells's time in Inazuma, he grew tired of seeing his fellow foreigners being overly taxed and abused for just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, given his experience of being a Portman's grandson, he starts a strike by being like, hey, what happens if we don't give them what they want? They can't throw us all in jail. They can throw everyone in jail, but this stupid idea gives the International Trade Association the opportunity to negotiate down the demand for crystal marrow to give everyone room to breathe. It's still like awful, but it's, you know, it's not that detrimental to everyone around them. So it's a win, kind of. But as a result, Wells is known as the thorn in the side of the Kanjo Commission, and his reputation spreads throughout Inazuma, where it gains the attention of a certain Yashiro commissioner. It's Ayato. I don't know why I say it like mysteriously when we all know it's Ayato. Of course it's Ayato. Day 9, major character flaw. This was the first one I did a redraw for. The 2023 attempt was for my OC Mordred, and his flaw was being gullible. Hence the Asdef movie quote. However, Mordred's character is a lot more complicated now, as he's more filled with guilt and manipulation, and my vocab isn't big enough to put his flaws into one word, which is why I changed directions entirely in the redraw and chose someone else to do. Everyone say hi to Faris again, the most prideful knight you'd ever meet. Not really, but he is a very proud person, mostly due to his upbringing as one of the council members' sons. He's got a lot of pressure from society to be a good son and someone his family can be proud of, on top of being part of like the knight force that is, you know, a big fucking deal in his country, or nation, I should say. So when he found out that he was a reincarnated knight, he felt like this was another source of pride, since his reincarnation was the Lancelot, the only demigod known in Astran history. Whether or not this is an exaggerated legend is still up to academic debate. It's me. I'm the academic in debate. I haven't decided. So of course, he's got a lot of expectations on his shoulders as a young man that might result in a minor stick up the ass. Day 10, OC as a child. Another redraw for this one. I think I was experiencing burnout around this point in 2023, so apologies for all of that. For the original piece, I chose my OC Parker. He's one of the main characters from my webcomic of All the Years to Love. And the original piece was going to include his tragic past as a victim of a war by the Empire. But that's old news now as of the making of that. So I redrew this with his updated lore as a Failing. A Failing is a non-Fae who gets adopted into the Fae world. The world in this story likes to twist that fact around to be like, the Fae are stealing children, when really Failings are often rejects of mortal society who have nowhere to go. Parker was adopted by his mother Elwyn when he was around toddler age, so he didn't know much about the mortal realm outside of the 5-year appearances the city makes every 100 years. But to curb his curiosity during her visits into the mortal realm, Alonwi would return with storybooks and literature that Parker could read that gave a little bit more of a look into mortal society. Roche, her aide, was concerned about Parker's growing curiosity about the mortal realm that rejected him despite being a literal toddler at the time and the dangers that could happen. But Elanri wasn't worried that much though, because she knew Parker's interest was only going to be surface deep. It wasn't like going to be this huge part of his arc or anything. No, it wouldn't be like that. Day 11, OC in formal clothing. Let's give it up for day 3 of redraws. I promise not all of the last days of 2023 resulted in redraws. My problem with this drawing was more to do with my art at the time, plus the outfit choice. This character, Julius, comes from a city that's rather steampunk inspired, and he is a part of the high society there. However, as steampunk is a very grunge and brown aesthetic, it didn't work well with the high polish and baby blues that I went with in the original. Hence the redraw with a different aesthetic approach. This time, the inspiration for the outfit was inspired by Japanese Lolita fashion, mostly for the Victorian aesthetic that they give off. It gives more of an air of aristocracy than the steampunk aesthetic from the previous attempt, though I have no doubt that the casual wear of the people in Julius's hometown fit more into the 2023 version, but obviously less baby blue. This makes the divide between the working class and the elite all the more obvious. Day 13, oldest OC. Yeah, you heard me. Day 13. I didn't do a day 12 in 2023 or 2024. This is mostly due to the prompt. It was OC in a different artist's art style. One of my biggest insecurities as an artist is I don't think that I can copy art styles very well. I have always just drawn the way that I've drawn. I never studied art styles. I never studied anything I never done a master study. I never done a study of other people's work or other people's styles, which is probably not the best to do as an artist who needs to learn how to grow and stuff, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. You should do master studies. You should do studies of colors and color theory and all that stuff. Do as I say, not as I do. Take the time to actually learn all that stuff. I didn't, and that's probably why my art is reaching like a plateau right now. But anyway, yeah, skip day 12 entirely. Maybe I'll do a video where I attempt to do that challenge of draw other people's styles to do a master study and learn things. And maybe do a deep dive into that. Figure out what I like in other people's styles versus what I don't like and what I can steal and what I can't steal. That's a topic for another video. But yeah, skip day 12, jump to day 13. Let's get back to it. Day 13, oldest OC. Thankfully, Elanwi survived the redraw phase unscathed, and this is pure 2023 content. Elanwi, as I mentioned earlier, is Parker's adopted mother, and she has a very important role in Face City, where a majority of the webcomic takes place. She was a name in my head for a long time with no clear design set in stone, so I went into this prompt aiming to flesh out a design for her. All of the Fae folk designs can be simplified into 3 categories that involve the aesthetics found in nature. The first category is the most common, the dawn and the dusk Fae, where their color palettes are inspired by unique sunrises and sunsets, and they are mostly those you would see in the background. This is Parker's category. The second category are the Fae inspired by forest and the sea, like autumn leaves or sea foam, stuff like that. They are kind of like the noble class or high society. And the third category are the Fae inspired by the beauty of natural disasters or dangerous nature. Think lava cracks, hurricanes, tornadoes, those kinds of stuff. These Fae are extremely rare or completely deceased. Elanwi falls into the second category, and her inspiration is the sun streaming through the leaves in a forest, that dapple light effect. So I gave her some lighter green spots on her skin to give the impression of dapple lighting, similar to how it's on your skin in real life through the leaves. I did my best to make her look more like a fairy and less like a green alien, which I think I achieved pretty well. But I may be biased because I really like how her design turned out in the end. Day 14, OC and AU of your choice. Okay, guys, you gotta promise me that this is a learning environment and that everyone has bad art and makes bad choices, okay? I'm going to be vulnerable right now, and I'm going to show you probably the worst art I've made in my entire career. Excluding the Hamilton fine art, I was a victim of the times. And it's gone. The eye-washing stations are down the hall to the left. All joking aside, this piece was a victim of the it looked better in my head side of the creative process. This was supposed to be Sunny in a Spider-Man AU, since Into the Spider-Verse Spider-Sonas were sweeping the internet in 2023, or were, I don't know when the movie first came out. I think I need to lay down. Okay, so it was across the Spider-Verse, not Into the Spider-Verse, but same shit. Sunny as a Spider-Sona using an abstract piece of art a former friend made me wasn't the best idea, and as a result, we got her, which resulted in so much shame, I chucked the entire idea into the bin and did something with as little thinking as possible, which is with my Genshin OC Wells in a modern AU. I know what you're thinking, but Gabe, that's not Wells. That's another OC. He looks completely different, and you would be wrong. Wells got a redesign sometime before Art Fight in 2024, but after Fontaine was released, which was August 2023? It's not even that long ago. Why does it feel like ages? Anyway, one thing I learned from the 2023 attempt was that planning ahead of time is actually kind of sick, so I did a quick little doodle of Wells to then play dress up on. One thing that was pointed out to me in ABD Illustrates' video where he was designing Genshin OCs was that Genshin loves asymmetry and long flowy stuff, so that's why I included that in Wells' redesign, so I decided to also translate that into Wells' modern design with a hoodie slashed in half the same way his kimono cuts across his body in the original design. I made sure to keep the white shirt underneath with the vertical stripes. I think they're called pinstripes. I think that's a sewing thing, as well as the brown pants and white sleeves, but of course with a more modern twist. I also made his gloves have the artist glove cut since his design was going to be my persona for the channel. Ignore the shoes. I can't draw the back of shoes to save my life. It's just the general idea anyway. But then we gave him a proper pose and drew him officially. This may or may not be the profile picture I use, depending on how much free time I have to render it and properly do all that stuff. But for now, welcome to the world. Modern Wells 2.0. Day 15. Time period change. This is the final day of the prompts completed in 2023, and I'm so happy that it ended on a high note. Because her story involved reincarnation and the souls of the reincarnated influencing the characters in modern day, I decided to do the old switcheroo and stick Sunny back in time at the same time period at the reincarnates. Because she's now in the past, she doesn't have a reincarnated soul attached to her, so I believe that she would be one of the few squires of the knight Guinevere who she is utterly devoted to and everything she stands for. She would definitely start and end fights with those who question her lady's honor and skill as one of the best knights of the nation, to the point that she often gets scolded by Lady Guinevere for her attitude. But it's not because she's madly in love with her. No, it's just normal squire and knight devotion. Nothing sapphic here, no sir. Am I gonna have to draw this Sunny getting super sapphic with past Guinevere? Is that a thing I'm gonna have to draw now? And that's it for 2023. I had finished 15 days out of 31. I don't care what you say, I'm counting day 12, which is more than the 2 that I did in 2020, so huge improvement for me. In all seriousness, I'm proud that I made it this far this time. By the time I finished day 15, it was the second week of November, and I had to ask myself, did I really want to finish this thing? And the answer was no, and that's okay. It's okay to give up, because by this point, I wanted to do other art and draw other things, but the reason you're even watching this video is because once that year flew by, and my life settled down again, as life tends to do, I got that itch, that itch to make a video, and I still really wanted to make this OC-tober video because the prompts were really good. Another shout out to Ask Ansfin on TikTok. It's a great prompt list. Thank you so much for making it, and here's their social plugs, one more, just right here, just for you. Plus I wanted to finish it, just so I can say that I finished a 30-day art challenge, with, a little tiny asterisk on the end, but no one sees it because it's a verbalized statement. Okay, enough yapping. Let's dive right into day 16, made in 2024. Day 16, biggest height difference. This prompt was practically begging for a ship, so we're gonna stick the pair with the biggest height difference in the same room. These two are the side couple in my webcomic for All the Years to Love, Grace and Milo. Grace is a witch, however, she doesn't remember making the contract or who she made it with. All she remembers is waking up in the smoking embers of her family home with bright pink hair and orange eyes. Milo is a shifter. A shifter is a clan of humans that made a pact with the Fae to gain animalistic qualities to aid in their daily lives. Basically, they're were creatures. Each clan has a different legend about how they became shifters, but it was all Fae related and it doesn't really matter that much. Milo came to Fae City for an internship at their communications tower. An internship in Fae City is basically a guarantee for a higher paying job out in the Empire, which made this job perfect for someone wanting to help lighten the load for his family. He would do anything to get a good recommendation letter, so when a hot goth witch comes in with a phone issue, he's more than willing to help, even if it ends up being more than he signed up for. Day 17, OC eating their favorite food. So I knew I wanted to do Silvo for this one, as he is a vampire, and also he was the only one of the main cast from my webcomic that I hasn't made an appearance yet. However, I didn't want to just do the blood bag thing, as the vampires in my comic only feed like once a week. So I had to answer the question, what is Silvo's favorite food? And as I thought about this question at my local grocery store and saw my partner's favorite seasonal sweet treat, the pumpkin roll, I thought, yeah, Silvo would definitely eat this. So here we are, the suave heartthrob in the middle of his very important skin routine, having a little treat that was squirreled away in his shared fridge by his roommate Grace, who definitely bought it for him when she saw it at the store. Their friendship is a little unconventional since back in the Empire, Grace is Silvo's personal servant, but given that Silvo has a very relaxed nature and Grace's has a no-nonsense attitude, the pair became rather casual friends despite, the employer-employee kind of relationship. And when Silvo left to go to the city with his fiance, he invited Grace to come along as like his friend plus one. Just she wasn't hired to go on as like a personal servant. She was just like casually invited, and because he cares about her so much, he's just like, come on, let's go. The three of us just hanging out together. They are each other's best friends, and they look out to each other as like a family of sorts. They're very, very close. Day 18, OC doing something they enjoy. It's Parker again! I say surprising nobody. As I mentioned on day 10, Parker developed a love for the Empire's culture and history that he could really only witness through books and like short stories and stuff. He could talk your ear off about some major war the Empire started some 500 years ago as if he was actually there. Kind of like those American Civil War buffs over here in the States, he will trap you in a conversation about a minor battle that was actually the turning point of the war. Because of his knowledge and his love for sharing information, he also serves kind of as an exposition character despite being part of the main cast. Also, he's not naive in the slightest. I want to make that very clear. Even though he was a kid when he started learning all of these stuffs, and when he was a kid he believed everything in those books to be true, as he became an adult and he began to actually like talk to people who live in the mortal planes, he has enough critical thinking skills to know when to take history about a powerful empire with a grain of salt. Day 19, OC you never draw. To the surprise of no one, yet again, I have many OCs. Most of them are designless fandom OCs that never see the light of day nor get their own unique name. I have so many anime OCs with the last name Hayashi, they could practically be a clan at this point. They might as well just be alternate universes versions of themselves. So rather than create a design for any of them, I'm gonna choose a character that I haven't drawn once outside of making his final character design for a series I've had in my head since 2016, Nico Solis. Nico is part of the same world as Sherwin, Sunny, Rowan, and Forrest, but rather than be a knight, he's a druid or a magic user. He's actually the apprentice to the Merlin, the title awarded to the most powerful druid in the nation, and he is considered to be the best skilled of the apprentices in the nation history, despite starting his apprenticeship later than most. He's 17 and the only minor of the cast. cast and is thus treated kind of like a kid by the others, even though the youngest of them is only 4 years older than him. Because of that, Nico doesn't hold the highest respect for a lot of the knights, excluding Indra, the de facto leader of the knights, until Sunny arrives. She treats him like an equal, or as much as one can, to a person 10 years younger than you, and in turn, Nico considers her to be the only one with a brain and trusts her judgment over anyone else's, including his own teacher sometimes. Also, little fun fact about Nico's design: the cast of Astronauts got a redesign session in early 2024, so I could add their designs to my little lore bible for the series that I started doing. But when it came to Nico's new design, I was struggling with his hair, and I wanted each of them to have like defining silhouettes, even as heads. But at the time, I was really into Delition and Dungeon. Laios is my favorite. And I kind of just scalped Kabru's head, gave it a little dye job, and boom, Nico design. And I say all this because I had forgotten that Kabru was in the inspiration for Nico's design, and when I came back to look at Nico's sketch after taking a break, I was just like, oh my god, that's just fucking Kabru. The inspiration went too hard, I fear. Day 20, OC with their pet. Now that Nico broke the containment for the Astronauts project, I had to keep it going with my dear sweet son Anthony Spade and his sweet little puppy Biscuit. Anthony is from a part of the nation affected by large amounts of magic, and as a result has a lot of natural occurring megafauna and megaflora that they have to live alongside. One of those megafauna is the hunting dogs. Basically big old fluffy dogs that are like 6 foot tall sitting down, and the one in Anthony's arms is Biscuit when he was a little puppy. He's a super playful dog who doesn't understand the impact of his size or how sharp his claws are when he plays, resulting in some scrapes and scars on Anthony, but Anthony loves it. He understands that it's just a baby. Anthony is easily the sweetheart of the cast, and he is a newer recruit to the Knights, making him the second youngest at 21, right over Nico. He's got a good head on his shoulders when it comes to dealing with people and surviving in the wilderness of his home, but don't ask him any logic-related questions. He will get confused and he will not try to answer them. Day 21, enemies teaming up. Now that I'm thinking about Anthony, I'm thinking about his introduction in the story and how during that arc where he's introduced, there's another person introduced. One of the minor antagonists, Mordred. Remember that name from Day 9? Well, here he is, properly drawn for the first time with his updated design. Technically in the story, Mordred and the Knights meet briefly before the arc involving Anthony's home, where he failed to assassinate Sunny, resulting in an immediate hostility between the two. But now, with Anthony and Sunny separated from the rest of the Knights, they have to team up Mordred to survive the sudden aggression of the megaflora and megafauna towards the human inhabitants on the island before it spreads across to the other islands of the nation. Will they survive? Is Mordred part of the problem or part of the solution? Let's just hope they survive each other first. Day 22, OC with weapon of choice. It's Faris again. Hi, Faris. Faris is one of my favorite designs of the Knights, right next to Sunny, because he was one of the first ones I really had a consistent design for throughout the many redesigns of this cast. He has a natural talent for jousting, becoming a household name until he was 21 and had to quit in order to join the Knights, where he picked up a lance and shield as his weapon of choice. It was kinda all he was known for, being the jousting one to his father due to how many siblings Faris was always confused with. Though he was upgraded to having a name attached to him during his association with the Knights and having the reincarnated soul of Lancelot, though it wasn't his name so much as the name of the man he was the reincarnated of. I promise his dad isn't that bad of a guy. He's got like 15 kids, okay? There's a lot of attention being split between 15 kids. On a lighter note, the little green handkerchief is a gift from Rowan. I like to think that they tie each other's handkerchiefs on each other's weapons, similar to how ladies in medieval times would do that to the knights that they show favor towards. They're the only two who do it, though. It's a little cringe at this point. Day 23, injured. Oh boy, was this a fun one for me. I love this one so much. Mostly because I had a completely different set of OCs lined up for this one, but then I got decked in the brain with this scene of calling a loved one when you're not gonna make it, but not letting them know that you're injured and dying, and just casually talking to them about their day and stuff as you slowly lose consciousness. Yeah, anyway, that's that scenario with my mama's boy, Logan, also from Astronauts. Logan is the oldest of a pair of twins who had parents who divorced during their childhood, each parent taking custody of one twin. Logan was taken in by his mom and had a very normal life before joining the Knights. He was average in everything: sports, art, math, science. He was even a manager at the local grocery store when the Knights showed up to inform him about his duty to the nation. He has a little bit of an inferiority complex, especially comparing himself to his social media star of a twin brother, but sometimes you need the normals to make the crazy seem livable. Imagine during this scene, Logan is separated from the others and badly wounded, and not knowing what else to do or who to contact, he calls his mom. He doesn't tell her what's happening, but lets her talk about her day and what she did and how the family has been, all while holding back tears at the thought of maybe never seeing her again. I know this wasn't the angst prompt day, but I was feeling it. I was feeling it out, and I really like it. I really like this idea that wormed its way into my brain. I love this. I love this so much. Day 24, OC cosplaying. Speaking of the twins, let's talk about Logan's twin, Landon. Landon was taken in by his dad, and his dad had a very hands-off approach to raising Landon. Not to the point of neglect or anything, just if Landon needed him, he was there. No matter how late it was, no questions asked, no judgment, no nothing. But his dad also never said I love you to his face. I'm just now noticing a trend with my characters' fathers, and I'm not gonna comment on that. Landon's rise to social media stardom happened after he joined the Knight and began to post behind the scenes of the elusive Knights of Astria fighting force. As the only source of insider information to the general public, Landon blew up overnight and led to the Knights of Astria having to hire a PR team and a social media manager to deal with it all. Regardless, the fame didn't affect Landon much. He did get sick of posting about his friends and started posting photos of him in fashionable outfits and cosplays, or ugly photos of Logan. You know how siblings are. But that's why I decided to put him in a cosplay of Kirara from Jujutsu Kaisen. I feel like he wouldn't have actually seen Jujutsu Kaisen at all, but saw Kirara's design on TikTok, or the in-universe equivalent, and was like, oh, she's sick, I want to do her next, and made a closet cosplay within the day to post online. He might actually start watching because of her, but that depends on how season 3 goes in real time, and my own opinion on it, to be honest. I don't know. Day 25, meme redraw. This one took a while to figure out. I knew I wanted to do someone from Astronauts, but with a cast that large, it's hard to really narrow it down. I was looking through my folder of memes on my phone when I saw a screenshot of this redraw challenge from Twitter. I had saved it ages ago for Sherwin and Landon, so obviously I'm doing it now. Landon and Sherwin's relationship pre-canon is really rocky and super complicated, probably because I used them to create my senior animation in college. Y'all remember that girl, Lainey, mentioned in Sherwin's backstory on day 4? Yep, that's Landon. Because it's been so long, both assume the other doesn't recognize them because of their dramatic shifts and changes in who they were since they last saw each other. Plus, Landon is intentionally distant from Sherwin, whereas Sherwin is still super in love with Landon, but obviously want to respect his space, because like after all that he did when they were together, it would be better to love from afar in Sherwin's perspective. Maybe I'll do a deep dive on their lore in another video, because I refuse to post my senior animation publicly. Maybe I'll link the short story I wrote about them that the animation is based off of. Who knows? Their story basically carried me creatively through my last year of college. Day 26, crying OC. Okay, so we're done with Astronauts for now, so back to the bitches who matter, namely Silvo. Again, I made it a part of Silvo's character that he cries super easily, despite being like this suave player that he is. When he's sad, tears. When he's angry, tears. When he's happy, oh baby, it's a flood. He's the worst at weddings, which is where I put him in for this prompt. Trust me, the crowd's there. I was on a time crunch, okay, and I'm lazy. I don't know. Sue me. Anyway, Silvo loves weddings, especially the weddings that his family throws. Mostly for the reception and after party once all the elders have turned in for the night. Most of them anyway. Silvo's Nana knows how to fucking party. It's basically a rave amongst family and close friends, and it's really the highlight of Silvo's year to attend his cousin's wedding in the webcomic. The man's a sucker for family. He's been planning his own wedding since he was a little boy, but since his fiance would rather elope than deal with his family, he lives vicariously through his cousin and offers to help plan when she first announced her engagement. Day 27. doing their job. Hi, yes, it's Parker again. He's my little guy. I love him. He's just a little baby. Parker's job in the webcomic is as a barista for the cafe in the center of the city, like the center plaza. But that wasn't always his job. Right before the current 5-year cycle, Parker got his heart broken by his ex, and for the first few years, he never left his room. His mother and Rocher tried everything to get him to get out of the house and heal and everything. They gave him jobs just so he would do something. He worked as an assistant, a journalist, a librarian, a cook, a middle manager, and none of those lasted longer than 3 days before he returned to rotting in his room. As for why barista outlasted all those odd jobs, that's a question best left answered by the story of the comic. But here's a little spoiler for you, as a treat, just for you guys. The best job for a broken heart is one with plenty of distractions. Day 28, 3 emotions your OC hates feeling. 3 is too complicated, and I'm already feeling the burnout at this point, so I'm gonna do just one emotion. Guilt. And who better to inflict maximum psychological damage to than my favorite problem child, Mordred? Yes, we're back in Astronauts. I told you it wouldn't last that long. A little bit about Mordred. That isn't really his name. He is nameless. Or rather, it's more like a title similar to the Merlin. Mordred was indoctrinated as a young boy into a cult that took refuge in the little pockets of air underwater around Astra. Like in between the islands, there's like a little ring. I'll put a map up, you'll see it. And they've been quietly spreading their influence among the unsuspecting public of the nation. He is thought to be the reincarnated soul of the cult's founder and leader, Mordred. That is his actual name. I know it's confusing, I'm sorry, but that's why it's more of like a title. But anyway, Mordred isn't the perfect leader that the cult is wanting. He's made a lot of mistakes when he was younger, like letting children live, showing mercy to followers, not being an asshole, like mistakes. Anyway, as the story rolls out, Mordred has to commit to his role, and as a result, does a lot of terrible things that he has never done before, and it breaks him a little bit. This is a line he has refused to cross, and now he's crossing it, and he wants to stop, but if he's destined to be who he is, how can he? And that's basically his struggle as a character through that story. Day 29, family picture. Let's take a break from Mordred's upbringing and talk about Julius's upbringing. Remember on day 11 how I mentioned that Julius comes from a wealthy family? Well, they're also super aloof, and his mother is pressuring him to take over the clan when his father passes. Even though Julius's father is the shifter's equivalent to being in his 50s, the man has time. Anyway, because of his snobbish upbringing, Julius is very much an asshole at first. He starts fights between his other siblings, minus his biological brother Cecil. He starts fights between other shifter clans. It gets to the point where when one of the heirs to a rival clan ends up dead, all the fingers are pointing to Julius. Julius is forced to flee with nothing but the clothes on his back to the safety of Fae City, where the clans won't touch him due to the shifters' overwhelming respect for the Fae, preventing any clan from starting trouble in the city. He's got until the city disappears to fix his mistakes and clear his name. How he'll do that from inside the city is anyone's guess. Day 30, Angst. As a little birthday treat for me, I'm gonna draw a scene from an animatic for a character that has not left my head since his existence. Guys, it's Mordred again, for Angst, because he is rattling away in my brain like a fucking shake charm, and I just wanna be artsy with him. He's just Also, mild content warning for mild gore and implied cannibalism for this one. Skip to this timestamp to avoid this part of the video. So this is based off of a scene in my head for an animatic for the song Preacher by Roy Capara, I think is how you pronounce it, where during the lyrics, strapped to the table, let the holy have their feast, Mordred would be lying on the table, almost void of emotion, as he lets the other cult members cut and consume him. This is all a metaphor, obviously, for how Mordred feels while in the cult, and since it was close to Halloween, I thought I'd give gore a try, but let's be honest, I don't like gore that much, so it's not super explicit. Also, YouTube and my mom are watching this, and I'd rather not get flagged by either of them. Hi, Mom. A little fun fact about Mordred, he has a little brother, or had anyway. No one knows what happened to his brother or if he's even still alive after Mordred allowed him to escape the cult that Mordred was already too deeply a part of. Mordred thinks he's out there somewhere, living a good, normal, quiet life, far away from the place they call home, safely out of his grasp. Day 31, Halloween costumes. You know it's gonna be my main four bitches from my webcomic. I ain't making costumes for all the nights. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. There's 12 of them. I ain't doing all that this year. Next year I can be convinced. I need a break from OC-Toby. I need a break from drawing this many people. We'll see where we are mentally. Anyway, for their costumes, I figured since most of them are stereotypical monsters, they would just go as their costumes. You know what? Classic. We got Silvo dressed as a vampire, Julius as a werewolf man, Parker as a fairy, and Grace as a witch. I like to think they're all going to the same party together, or maybe an in-world equivalent to a Halloween festival in the city, probably to get drunk and cause romance trope drama like in the midst of it all. This piece is very boring. It was the end of a journey and I just wanted to do something simple. I will add a little fun fact for each of them though, it's just because. Julius loves to cook, especially for other people. It's practically his love language. Grace's parents were a historian and a scientist for the Empire. They were both really kind people and there wasn't a clear motivation for their sudden murder. Silvo doesn't like coffee or tea. His drink of choice is literally anything else, with his caffeine intake being substituted with energy drinks or caffeinated lemonades. That man can probably fuck up a Dr. Pepper. I'll be so fucking real with you. And lastly, Parker can play the trumpet and plays in a jazz band that plays at a fancy restaurant in the city like once a week. And that's OC-Tober circa 2023 and 2024 completed. Oh my gosh, I had a lot of fun with this challenge, but I'm so glad it's over. And I'm also glad that I just bit the bullet and made the video, even though it's nowhere near October and the wrong year. But you know what? It's good enough for me. I'm glad I just finished it. If you made it this far, you're like me for real, and you should probably subscribe if you enjoy watching and listening to me ramble about my interests, about my characters, about anything that's going on in my process. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Here are all my socials if you want to follow, and I hope to see you in the next one, whenever that is.